What's up, Descendants? Now, there's a few things that I wanted to get into in today's video, and I feel like this is very important for not only you guys' experience, but also feedback for the development team, constructive feedback, because I do feel like there's a huge goal that they have in mind, and I want to be a contributing factor to that. So we're going to be getting into what are the things that they went and changed today, or fixed today, I should actually say. And then, of course, just some of the things that I feel like they still need to go back and rectify just because of what it's done or the after effect of it, right? So let's talk about it. Now, number one, okay, the patch that we had today for August 6th, which is Tuesday at the recording of this video, they resolved the issue with the strength and first shot module where it was having a non-reset error. So they discovered this error where it basically was not proccing the cooldown timer on it, and it was allowing people to produce more damage than they intended. So with the patch, they basically went and fixed that, and they'll let us know when that's finished, right? So the directors go to say we're endeavoring to solve issues and provide better gaming and a better gaming environment. We will also continue to listen to your endless feedback and keep the game stable while maintaining fairness. Now, the thing is that what this was allowing players to do, just to kind of give you guys an idea, I'll show you guys the mod that this is also referring to as well. So the mod that this is the strength and first shot, and this is for your high powered mod, right? And so with this is going to be after a reload, the first shot's firearm attack was plus 100%. And the cooldown was supposed to be 20 seconds. Now, to my knowledge and the way it was explained to me, shout out to the homie EXO. If I got any portion of this wrong or incorrect, definitely let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll pin it. But what was happening was basically that individuals were able to reload, or they would shoot one shot, reload, and then they were using characters like Glay, for example, going into her infinite ammo, and then they would basically shoot, and every single first shot was considered every shot was considered a first shot, which was giving that firearm attack of 100%. Now, I think this was actually being applied to also rocket or grenade launchers too, and that was just kind of insanity because then people were getting like massive amounts of damage from all those still being considered the first shot, right? Now, the main thing is that they obviously went and balanced this out, but we've been having a lot of different things that are like either bugged or being utilized as exploits a lot recently. I mean, even one of the things we just recently had, and it just kind of completely got this character wrecked, was Kyle. GG for him, and honestly, RIP. I hope they go back and they revisit this unit because for example, if you guys have not checked out the fam Scion Storm, he was probably one of the like first dudes to just like have a really predominant cow video that popped up. And the crazy thing about that is that fundamentally, Kyle is not even the same character anymore from that video that he made. And this all came from the exploit that was basically showcasing Kyle, where he was doing 160 mil damage to Gluttony. And people were able to use that to be able to farm max dupes and max variants of the new gun that was just released in the game. Now, of course, with that, my big thing is all about the fairness of the game, okay? And this is my thing to the devs, because I'll say this, and this is kind of the point I want to make. We were actually running co-op that day, and of course I've run with Scion. For those of you guys that don't know, me and him actually play the game almost every single day together, and we were running co-op, and we couldn't figure out why people kept joining our squad in pubs and they kept leaving, or they would just stand in one spot and not do anything. And I was like, wait, what in the heck is happening here? And come to find out was because they were expecting him to do the exploit and be one shot man Kyle. And it was funny at the time because we're like, wait, why did they keep leaving? But what ended up happening was when they made the adjustment and the change to Kyle, it fundamentally ruined the character for a person that, for example, prime case and example, this was the first character that he invested in and was his main character. So this character now is not the same. And they went and made this adjustment and change because people went and they exploited the character. And so a lot of innocent people were affected by this because, again, we didn't have any clue or idea that there was this exploit going on because he was just being a tank, right? Like he was just using them how he normally uses them, and he wasn't trying to, in any means, trying to one-shot the boss. So what ended up happening was now he basically has all this investment and he feels like the character isn't exactly or nowhere near exactly what he had intended and socketed the unit to be. So my thing is that I feel like when the dev team is making these adjustments and changes, granted, it is good that they prevented people from being able to continue to do the exploit, because the problem with that is that we have people that were able to max dupe the new gun that just came out on like the second day of the game being updated, and that does kind of ruin and kind of tarnish that entire grind for the gun when a lot of other individuals are not able to do that quote unquote exploit, in all fairness, right? And I think it also makes people feel like it's kind of like almost like a FOMO, like they feel like they just missed out because they're like, man, I wish I would have did that. When in actuality, it shouldn't even be that way. It shouldn't feel that way in any regard, because it's like, hey, listen, this is kind of the, you know, the nature of the game. You're supposed to grind out. You might obviously have some units that perform slightly better than others, but not completely decimating like how the cow was doing. But I digress on that. But either way, when we're talking about the investment part, and this is the big part that I've seen the most in the community, is that a lot of people are now scared to build their units. And that is because a lot of these builds that we are making is fundamentally locking the characters, right? So with sockets, it locks them quite a bit. And I could argue that, yes, you do get more value out of locking the character because you're able to, I would say, make them one of two things, either a farmer or a bossing unit. And you get the most value out of going in one direction versus trying to have both. But that's why, like I can speak for myself and even the homie Scion, we've been trying to maintain builds that allow you to have openness on your characters so that you can get utility. Even though you might not be hitting the top or highest numbers, they're still effective and still allow you to get multiple utility out of the character, or dual usage, I should say, out of the character, because we have to be realistic to the fact that not everybody has grinded almost every unit or has built up every unit or even has done nearly as many resets or socketing on more than one character. And so for people that are investing in characters, for me, it put into perception that this can happen to any character, right? Because not only did they patch the things that were obviously being exploited, but that in turn also changed a lot of how his kit worked. They went and they patched certain things just so it wouldn't lead to another thing to continue to do the exploit, instead of actually like nitpicking and fundamentally making it make more sense so that the issue itself for the exploit was gone, but it didn't change or ruin the character for the builds that people already had that were working just fine. And so with that, I do feel like they do need to revisit characters like Kyle, right? I absolutely feel like they do. They're going to have to revisit that, or they're going to need to do one of two things. They're going to need to give some sort of compensation for socketing. And I feel like this is anytime you do any sort of adjustment or change to characters, that when you're talking about, when you're looking at what people are spending money on, which yes, people do spend money on sockets, and or what we would say would be equivalent value would be your time, they have to find a way to be able to reimburse people for that. Again, the other alternative would be, again, what they've been saying they were going to be doing, which is at some point fundamentally changing how sockets work. I really, truly, honestly think that sockets would be really nice, is that if you wanted to allow players to be able to have interchanging sockets, charge them gold for it. I think that that would be amazing, because then, yes, we would have to farm more gold, but you could at least use a currency that's farmable in the game, and that is definitely not as tedious to get. Like, we're talking about every single time you make a socket or a crystallization catalyst, you have to wait 8 hours for that. And so you're talking about, with some of these builds, if anyone wanted to, for example, after this cow change, go back and readjust or change their cow again, they're going to almost have to resocket him entirely. And that's a lot of resockets that you're expecting a player to have to do, especially if they're casual and they're not going to want to do that. They're going to be discouraged. They're going to feel like their time was wasted. And there's two things that will happen. They'll either never touch that character again, and more than likely, the number one thing will be they'll probably quit the game. And that's something that I want to be opposed or against, is people quitting the game. You know, I wanted to create and help contribute, I would say, at least. I don't necessarily feel like I have control to create, but at least be a contributing factor to keeping people sticking to the game longer. So I really honestly think that this is a big thing that honestly, yes, it's great that they're adjusting and addressing the exploits and the issues that we have within the game. But I also think that they have to do it with keeping in mind that this is all in all going to be, again, negatively impacting people's accounts when we're talking about people that want to exploit things end up coming to the forefront and doing things, right? So I think that, again, it's just finding a way to not punish everybody, but again, still being able to rectify and fix the issue. I will also say too, guys, that when it also comes down to a lot of these issues, you know, for me, I am trying to, like I said, keep the builds as open as possible, but I think that the devs definitely need to figure out a way and communicate that as well, of how they're going to be moving when we're talking about, you know, adjusting or changing characters, and it's causing people to have to fundamentally go back and change things. Now, I will say, as my advice to you guys, the best thing that I would say, considering that there are a ton of people that I've seen that are honestly more scared to follow certain builds that they're seeing even here on YouTube, I would definitely say take what you can from the build, but if it does in any way seem or feel like it's something that possibly could get nerfed, and if you're casual, I would say you might want to hold off, right? I have the luxury, some of you guys that are spenders might have the luxury of just going back in and resocketing how you want, but not everybody has that buying power or the time to realistically do that. And so you're going to have a lot of people dropping off the game, and I would even implore content creators to be more mindful of how they're putting out content, because again, the developers told us from the very beginning that they were watching us. They made it very clear. They were, one, in a very excited way, saying, hey, we're watching you guys, we're looking at what you guys are doing, we're excited to see what builds you guys are doing, but not for a second that didn't mean they weren't watching us to see what exploits, what cheats, what hacks people were doing, what balances they might need to implement, or what even changes they might need to make the game more interesting. So I will say this, guys, that especially to my peers that are content creators, you guys have a lot more power than you think. And if you don't think that you do, then you need to be understanding to the fact that you do, right? The content that we put out is directly affecting the game. It 1000% is. And obviously this isn't just due to our region. We obviously have JP, we got KR, there's a whole bunch of other places, but I would say that you can only control what you do. The same way I feel about how I'm able to contribute to the community is the same way I feel each individual person. And it starts there. Each individual person making a conscious decision to make content that is going to be in benefit of the viewer. Okay. You know, so that's just my take there. But again, guys, I really just wanted to talk about this because I seen there was a lot of people that were concerned and worried with the state of the game and just builds, and concerned with how builds are, you know, just kind of coming out and how they feel like things are getting nerfed or changed or adjusted. I will say more than not, a lot of builds are being balanced and adjusted, but there are some that I'm just kind of like, they might have to kind of approach that a little bit better. And the other thing is too, and I'll say the last thing I want to say here is, when we're also talking about people that are taking advantage of exploits, I don't condone exploits, and nor do I think it's fair, because for everyone that's sitting here and having to tough it out or farm gluttony the proper way and actually trying to build units the proper way to fight it, you know, everyone that was able to take advantage of that, it gives them a unfair edge when we're talking about that. In order for you to even get those parts, you have to directly kill that boss. There is no amorphous, there is no alternative way. You have to, even some of the transcendences, you have to kill that boss. So I definitely would say that to the devs, you guys have to answer for that as well. There is something, and I would even say a responsibility when it comes down to your intellectual property being exploited. You have to take advantage, you have to, I would say, take responsibility for that for the average player, so that they don't feel like there's unfair advantages happening and then there's nothing that happens to those individuals. Now, again, that's going to be my whole spiel with that. I'm interested to know what you guys think on this matter, because I just feel like, honestly, all in all, there's a lot of good things that this game is doing, but I think it is also important to talk about the things that I feel like they could be doing better, and I want to hear from you guys. So that's going to be that, guys. Definitely like and subscribe this video so more people and hopefully the development team can see it as well. But that's going to be that, guys. Everyone, stay blessed, stay safe out there, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.